Fear No Evil, Chapter 3. The cultist with mint green hair and matching eyes picked up a bowl of soup from the sole end table. As she'd done with the water, she ate a spoonful before handing it to him, presumably to show it wasn't drugged. "Nourishment for the body is good for the soul," she chirped. "Thank you," Izuku said. He didn't feel true gratitude toward the people who'd abducted him, and her overly cheerful attitude was giving him the creepy crawlies, but he thought it in his best interests as a kidnapping victim to be polite until given reason to act otherwise. He blew on the soup, then took a small sip. It tasted like beef and vegetables. No funny aftertaste in the back of his throat, at least so far. "I'm Izuku Midoriya. According to the books on survival that he'd read, he should try to make himself seem human to his captors. What's your name?" "I know who you are, Izuku." She smiled in the same creepy way that didn't reach her eyes and pointed at his shirt. He looked down. His clothes had been changed. He wore a pure white robe. He didn't like to think about that. His chest had a name tag reading Izuku. Looking up, he saw the woman also had a name tag on her robe. "I see, your name is Botan. I should have noticed. What's your last name? I would feel rude addressing you so informally." Botan said, "We don't use surnames here in order to disconnect ourselves from the outside world." Izuku felt uncomfortable calling a woman who looked older than his mother by her first name, but it didn't appear she was going to give him another one. The books had also suggested that he use his captor's name frequently in an attempt to form a bond. "Botan, do you know where we are?" He tried to sound innocent, as if he wasn't calculating the distance to the nearest police station. "We're safely under the protection of Humarise, the saviors of humanity." Botan spoke as if she was reciting from a brochure. Izuku's fake smile became strained. "I meant, where is this building located relative to the city of Musutafu?" She shook her head. "We chosen ones aren't permitted such information for our own safety." "We? Are you quirkless too?" "Yes, I've been assigned as your temporary caretaker. Only another chosen one would be permitted to look after a chosen child, though fewer children are born with each generation. I looked after a girl from Kansai for a few weeks before she was transferred to Europe." Her gaze became wistful. "They like to keep all the chosen children together for your safety. I'm sure they'll send you to the European headquarters soon, but I'll make your stay here as comfortable as I can in the meantime." Izuku tried not to let his horror show on his face. He would have a much harder time escaping if he was shipped off to a foreign country. Furthermore, the news that Humarise had been kidnapping quirkless children from across Japan and no one had even noticed gave him much less hope of rescue. All Might would come for him. Izuku knew it in his bones. He was so very, very glad that he'd sent his mentor that text about Humarise. It would be a valuable clue. Eraserhead had seen him get kidnapped, too. Izuku snuck a sidelong glance at Botan. As another quirkless person, was she here willingly, or had she been kidnapped long ago and developed Stockholm Syndrome? It unnerved him to think this cult might be so effective at brainwashing people. Perhaps he should test if he could appeal to her sympathies. "Could I send a message to my mother? Even just to tell her that I'm all right? She must be so worried about me." A muscle twitched in Botan's jaw. She said, "Humarise will have already informed your mother of your relocation. A parent cursed with an unholy power cannot suitably care for a chosen child." But for the first time, she didn't sound like she believed what she was saying. She sounded very sad. He'd found a chink in her armor. He pressed his advantage. "My mother only has me in the entire world. I'm an only child. Her parents are deceased. My father abandoned us." That last part wasn't true. Hisashi Midoriya was a workaholic, and Izuku wished his dad would visit more frequently, but he did call from America at least twice every week. Hisashi lavished his family with financial support and generous gifts, and he'd always doted on his only child. But Izuku could see that this line of attack was having an effect. With each word, Botan's blank face cracked. Izuku had always been an easy crier. By thinking of his mother, he summoned up a flood of tears. He sobbed, "If Mom lost me, then she might die of grief." He stopped, fearing he might be exaggerating too much. But it had worked. Botan's hand shook with agitation as she pulled out a handkerchief and handed it to him. She said, I'm sorry. So very sorry. I'm not allowed any contact with the outside world. They'd never let you send a message. I wish I could help you. I promise I'll do everything in my power to look after you while you're here. Unfortunately, Izuku believed her. It would have required too much luck to get a chance to pass on a coded message. At the least, he'd take advantage of her offer to obtain what information he could. He mopped his face with the handkerchief. Will you answer some questions? It would reassure me. He added a fake wobble to his voice. I'll answer any questions that I'm permitted to, Botan said. She'd shifted back into her tour guide voice with unnerving ease. Her lips warped into a smile, but her hands still shook. Are we allowed any access to internet or other entertainment? The internet corrupts pure hearts and minds. You may access approved reading material. Botan gestured at a small white bookshelf tucked into the corner of the room. That had been a long shot. How many other quirkless are here, and when do we socialize? Botan said, This facility houses about 24 chosen ones, but I'm afraid you can't meet them yet, not until you're more acclimated. The smile never left her face, but Izuku took her meaning. Not everyone here knew that Humarise liked to kidnap people. Humarise had tried to persuade him to come here voluntarily, so there might be others who'd been drawn in by the promises of free room and board for quirkless people. Izuku wondered how many of them hadn't yet realized that they couldn't leave. Izuku asked, How often do we receive supplies? He suspected they were outside town. Once a week, Botan said. There will always be plenty of food. If you would like particular books, you can request them and they will be purchased if the content is deemed acceptable. But the next truck won't arrive for 5 days and you'll have left for Europe by then. This was bad news. Izuku had hoped the supply transfer might be an opportunity to escape. How is this place guarded? I'd like to confirm that it's safe. He needn't have bothered with the transparent deception. Botan said, We're not permitted that information. Izuku licked his lips. He'd been putting off this question because he was afraid of the answer. What is Humarise going to do to me? Botan took his hand. Her eyes were gentle. No one is going to hurt you. They only keep you here in order to protect you from the cruelty of a world that hates people like us. All your needs will be cared for until the day you die. You'll get used to it. It's not so bad here, truly. Humarise cherishes chosen children. Everyone here loves you very much. Thanks, Izuku said, despite actually being very creeped out by that last statement. Botan placed his spoon back into his hand. Finish your soup, then I'll bring you to some people who very much want to meet you. Under Botan's watchful gaze, Izuku ate as quickly as possible. His bandaged elbow throbbed whenever he moved it. The desire to run itched under his skin. He could dodge past Botan to the door. But then what? He had no idea where he was. Fortunately, he hadn't been chained up, but an unsuccessful escape attempt might change that. It would be better to bide his time and come up with a plan first. If they took him out of this room, then he might be able to figure out the location of the exit. He tried not to worry about his mother. She must be crying hard enough to flood their house. After Izuku finished eating, Botan took the bowl and headed to the door. She knocked once. Someone opened the door for her. Izuku glimpsed 2 people, wearing red robes rather than white with their faces covered. They must be guards. As soon as she stepped out into the hallway, the door closed behind her. The door had been locked, and Botan didn't have a key. As expected, he wouldn't have been able to escape if he'd tried. Alone, Izuku tried to activate One for All. He squeezed his eyes shut and gripped the metal bedpost, trying to bend it. Nothing happened. Too bad. He could very much use a quirk at the moment. If he was extremely lucky, Humarise would see him using a quirk and throw him out themselves. Minutes ticked away. The door opened. Botan stepped in, flanked by 2 guards with staffs. She smiled. The ceremony is ready. Izuku was getting very fed up with that fake smile and the kindergartner teacher tone. He felt nervous, but he told himself he needed to see the building outside of this cell. He stood up. Botan took his hand as if she was an adult leading a small child. She squeezed lightly and whispered, Don't worry, I know it all sounds very mysterious, but the diseased members only want to welcome you and bask in your presence. Diseased? Is that what you call people with quirks? He whispered back. We don't use that word. It glorifies the unholy. We use diseased or tainted or cursed. Izuku flattened his mouth before he said something undiplomatic. The masked guards remained silent for the entire walk. They stopped in front of a door made of stained glass and assumed posts guarding either side. As Botan pushed open the door, Izuku shifted from foot to foot with nervous energy. He knew it wouldn't be smart, but he longed to run. It was convenient that he hadn't been handcuffed, but also insulting how they expected him to go along with their creepiness. Especially since he was, in fact, going along with it. Stone archways framed the stained glass windows running down the cathedral. Guards flanked each arch. The windows had spotlights behind them, leading Izuku to conclude they didn't connect to the outdoors. So much for jumping out of one. He might be underground. The pews were packed with people in red robes with white hoods. Unlike the guards, they didn't wear masks. A bead of sweat ran down Izuku's neck. He remembered reading that kidnappers who didn't wear masks were more likely to kill you. But he didn't think that was the case here. They just didn't plan to ever let him go. Botan took Izuku's hand and led him down the aisle. The congregation whispered and muttered. Such a young child. We are blessed. It's an honor to be here. He's so adorable. Many hands reached out to stroke Izuku's robe and touch his hair. He flinched away. This cult had no manners. The aisle ended at a short flight of stairs. The stained glass window in the back depicted a glowing baby with a knife through the heart. Whoa, a lack of manners might be the least of these people's problems. A tall man with a hooked nose stood before an altar covered in white cloth. He wore a red robe and a high, pointed hat rimmed with tiny flecks of diamonds. Izuku assumed this oversized cap imparted him some importance. He didn't have a name tag. Those seemed to be only for quirkless people. White robes for quirkless, red robes for those with quirks. Then Botan and Izuku were the only quirkless present. Probably a priest stepped forward and kissed Botan on the forehead. Thank you for bringing him here, my dear. It was a fatherly gesture, even though Botan looked older than him. Although quirkless people were considered holy here, they definitely didn't seem to be the ones in charge. Izuku filed away that tidbit of information. In a swift motion, the priest scooped Izuku up like a toddler and placed him on the altar. Izuku squawked and lashed out with his foot, catching the priest in the shoulder. Up until this point, he'd been certain he wouldn't be killed, but this sure looked suspiciously like a human sacrifice altar. His heart raced. He jerked his head around, looking for a back door. The priest called to the guards lining the wall. They came forward. Botan locked eyes with him. She said, "It's okay. I've been through this before. They won't hurt you." She seemed to be trying to convey a message with her eyes. Izuku took a deep breath. This was very much not the right time to try to escape, not with what looked like close to 100 cultists between him and the only exit. Though his limbs trembled with the effort, he forced himself to keep still. He didn't resist when the guards held down his arms and legs. The priest stood over him, chanting in a foreign language. It sounded vaguely European. Izuku thought he recognized a Latin word. Scented smoke drifted off a brazier. The priest sprinkled water from a white bottle all over Izuku's body. A good part of the crowd was chanting along. The nonsensical words swelled up and echoed off the high ceiling. The priest kissed Izuku on the forehead. He flinched, but couldn't move away, not with his limbs restrained. Standing up straight, the priest bellowed, "The Chosen One will now bless everyone." He would? Izuku glanced at Botan, hoping for a clue. While he wasn't looking, the priest picked him up again and placed him on a cushion on the floor. Izuku shuddered from the touch. There, the priest murmured, one hand holding Izuku's shoulder down. "You're safe. You're protected. We all love you very much." The creepy spiel was not helping, thanks anyway. Neither was the unwanted hand combing through his hair. The priest said, "Let the children go first." Herded by the guards, half a dozen children in red robes came forward. A little girl threw her arms around Izuku and hugged him. He went stiff. He didn't feel comfortable with this, but what was he supposed to do? Kick an elementary school girl? She skipped off, muttering to the boy next in line. I don't see what's so special about him. He's not even a very good hugger. It pleased Izuku to know the younger generation hadn't gone insane yet. The little boy came forward and hugged him next, then 3 more girls. Apparently, this hugging was the blessing. A very odd ritual, but not as bad as he'd feared. The very last boy had 2 stubby horns poking out of his hood. He clung to Izuku for an extra long time. Staring up with big brown eyes, he whispered, "Are you going to cure me? Mommy says I have devil horns." Izuku had a lot he wanted to say to that, but with the guards watching, he only said, "They don't look like devil's horns to me. They look more like the growing antlers of a young deer. I think they're very cute." This won him a tiny smile. The priest called, "Form an orderly line." He picked Izuku up by the armpits and handed him to the first red-robed cultist in line. Izuku flailed. The woman hugged Izuku close, half-sobbing, "I feel so blessed." Before Izuku had time to feel properly annoyed about this, she handed him off to the man behind her. Was every single person here going to hug him? All 100 of them? Izuku nearly opened his mouth to protest. Then he saw the children, still lined up in front of the altar and watching him. He didn't want to upset the children. It annoyed Izuku because he suspected the priest had deliberately sent the children first, then kept them in the front watching in order to manipulate him into cooperation. But even though he knew it was a trick, that didn't stop it from working. He knew full well he couldn't escape right now, so if he fought back, he'd only risk these kids getting caught up in it for nothing. An enormous man crushed Izuku to his chest and whispered, "It's so hard sometimes. I want to fly more than anything. But it's wrong. I have to keep my feet on the ground. Please bless me and grant me forgiveness and salvation." Izuku tried to say something, but he was passed off to the next person too quickly. They were gentle, he had to give them that much. They were very careful not to jostle his left arm, which still had a bandage from the blood work someone had done while he'd been unconscious. The one time someone bumped him there, she received a stern look and an admonishment from the priest. But Izuku didn't want these strangers touching him at all, gentle or not. The touches just kept on coming. Endless people grabbing his body and running their fingers through his hair. Some of them even presumed to pepper kisses on his face or whisper that they loved him. Even if it didn't seem to be sexual, that didn't stop it from being damn creepy. It felt like hours. It could very well have been at least a couple hours, since over 100 people filled the room and most of them had held him for a couple minutes. By the time he'd gotten through the line, he felt like throwing up. The priest screamed, "You have been purified!" Everyone cheered loudly enough to rupture an eardrum. Sitting on the cushion, Izuku winced. Botan leaned over him and offered him a hand. "Come with me." Izuku stood up without taking her hand. If one more person touched him, then he would scream. Fortunately, she didn't force the point. As they walked down the aisle, the crowd cheered and applauded as if Izuku had done something more remarkable than stand still and resist murderous urges while they pawed him. More hands reached out to touch the 2 quirkless again. Botan tried to put herself between Izuku and the hands, so they mostly touched her. He appreciated that. His head ached from the smell of the strange smoke. She led him back to the same room. Izuku memorized the route, even though he wanted to get to the building exit, not back to the creepy church. Leading him to the bed, she said, "You should rest. You must be exhausted after blessing so many people." She sounded sincerely sympathetic. Izuku said, "I'm bored, actually. Could I have an empty notebook?" He wanted to test what he could get. Botan said, "They wouldn't let you have a pen." It went unspoken that a pen could become a weapon. "If you'd like any particular books, I can check to see if we already have them." "I'm embarrassed. Can I whisper them to you?" Izuku wasn't certain if the guards outside were listening. Botan leaned down. Izuku whispered, "Do they ever let us go outside? Is this place underground?" Botan whispered back, "Yes, we're underground. I truly don't know where, but it's outside the city. They might let you visit the greenhouse if you want sun, but the walls are made of glass too strong to break. Have you ever seen where they bring in food and supplies?" She shook her head. "Don't try it. If you step 1 foot outside this building, then you'll have to go through a purification ritual. That's a lot more unpleasant than what you went through today. I know you're scared, but everyone here will be good to you as long as you don't fight them." Rising, she said in a louder voice, I'll bring you some comic books the last girl here used to read." She turned away. He let her go. She'd already helped him more than she realized. Faintly, under his skin, he felt energy start to crackle. Botan returned, pushing a cart full of comic books. She said, "An honor has been bestowed upon you. You will eat dinner with the head of the compound and her family tonight." Behind the forced cheer of her voice, Izuku got the message. He didn't have a choice. The gifts were bribes in exchange for his cooperation in any rituals this demented cult demanded quirkless people for. This was the carrot. If he acted out, he expected he'd learn what they used as the stick. He asked, "Is this invitation normal for newcomers?" "No, you're considered special because young quirkless are so rare. Everyone wants a chance to be purified by you before you're taken away." "Taken away where? Which country?" Botan twisted her hands. "I don't know. It's a safer place. The safest fortress of Humarise, where the chosen children live. I've heard it's extremely luxurious. You'll get to play with others your age. I'm sure you'll like it more there." Izuku sucked in a breath. He didn't like the sound of this extra safe fortress. He would have to make a break for it before they moved him. "Do you know when I'll be taken there?" "I don't. I'm sorry." Botan's eye twitched. She leaned in and whispered, "Whatever you're thinking, don't. It never ends well. You probably haven't even been reported missing. They control the police. Go to a police station and they'll call Humarise to come pick you up." Then she turned and nearly fled the room. Izuku didn't think he would have been able to get anything more out of her anyway. He still didn't completely understand where she stood, but even if she wouldn't help him, he didn't think she'd turn him in either. He filed away her accusation toward the police to later report to All Might. Sitting down, Izuku opened a book, but he only pretended to read it. As much as Izuku enjoyed comic books, he was in no mood right now. Instead, he spent the hours before dinner going over every minuscule bit of information he'd learned and planning his escape. Botan arrived holding a basket of beauty supplies. She led him to the bathroom attached to his cell. She tried to comb his hair, but he took the brush from her and did it himself. "What should I know before going into the dinner?" he asked. Handing him a chapstick, Botan said, "They don't like it when you express hostility toward them, talk about wanting to leave, or reject their touch. Normally, that would get you sent back to your room, but everyone very much wants to be blessed by you before you leave, so it's more likely they would restrain you. You won't get to eat if you end up gagged. What can I do to appeal to them?" "Yes, that's the right way. I'm glad you're a fast learner." She sounded relieved as she gave him a wet wipe for his face. "They want you to be meek, happy, and grateful. Don't mention anyone's ability if you notice it. That's considered very rude. When someone asks if you've washed away their taint, play along and say yes. You'll get gifts if you please them. There are more ways, but I haven't time to teach you. Since you don't know the rituals yet, it's better if you don't talk too much." Like last time, the guards flanked them as Botan led him down the hallway. The white walls mostly looked the same, with splashes of color from religious paintings. She took him to a tall gray door. "I can't stay, sorry. Smile a lot and talk as little as possible," she whispered before pushing him inside. The dining room was small and round, but the golden etchings on the wall and the throne-like chairs bespoke wealth. Humarise was clearly well-funded. 3 people sat around the table. A burly man leapt to his feet and swept Izuku into a hug. Oh look, another unwanted hug. Izuku remembered Botan's instructions and reluctantly went limp. Lifting him off his feet, the man cried, "He's so small and cute. How old is he, 12? 14, actually," Izuku mumbled. "Set him down," a woman said with an indulgent smile. She looked late middle-aged with short-cropped black hair. Izuku was relieved when the man let go, but apparently it was the woman's turn next. Wrapping her arms around him and pulling him close, she spoke into his hair. "I'm Akane, the high priestess of this home. My husband is Enmei and my son is Haruto." Haruto, a scrawny college-aged youth, hugged Izuku next. Gasping for air, Izuku said, "My name is..." Akane laughed. "We all know who you are. You're famous. I don't know how we failed to notice you for so long. It must have been so difficult, surviving all alone in a cruel, heartless world full of diseased heretics." Izuku had a plan. Cursing the local leader out would not benefit the plan. He bit his tongue and only said mildly, "Yes, I had problems with bullies." "How dreadful!" Akane placed a hand over her heart. "You must have suffered so much. Tell us all about it." She patted the chair between her and her husband, urging him to sit down. "Most recently, Kachan signed me up for your mailing list, and that's officially put him at the top of my shit list. The other kids insulted me a lot." Plan or not, Izuku didn't want to talk about this, especially not with them staring at him with eyes hungry for drama. Akane grabbed his arm and yanked up his sleeve. "Aw, you have scars, you poor thing." Izuku vibrated with the effort of not shoving her off. He desperately groped for a change of topic. "What lovely earrings you have, ma'am." "They were a present from my dear hubby." Akane giggled and touched the huge diamonds hanging off her ears. Enmei beamed. "What good taste he has." Izuku looked around for more flattery targets. Except everyone wore robes and only the high priestess had jewelry. Haruto had brilliant purple hair. "Your son's hair is so lovely, it practically looks like it's glowing." Izuku shut his mouth as he realized that Haruto's hair was glowing. That must be his quirk. Haruto sank lower in his seat and put a hand over his head. "I'm sorry," he mumbled. "I'm not doing it on purpose." His hair glowed even brighter. "I'm trying to stop, I swear." Izuku waved his hand over the purple locks. "I remove your curse." The hair immediately stopped glowing. As Izuku had hoped, these people believed strongly enough in his fictional ability to remove quirks for it to have a psychological effect. "Thank you," Haruto said, sitting up straighter. "Oh, you truly are special." Akane clapped her hands. The guards brought in a feast. Izuku ate lightly because it would be harder to run on a full stomach. Akane pulled down his collar to show a bruise. "Tell me how you got this dreadful injury. It must be such a tragic story." Izuku ground his teeth. It appeared he wasn't getting out of this. Botan had said he could get a gift if he played along. He needed that chance. "Another boy pushed me down the stairs." Actually, he'd slipped and fallen while cleaning the beach with All Might, but that wasn't what they wanted to hear. He had plenty of real bullying stories, but he made several up instead. It felt like less of a violation of his privacy if he lied. Akane ate it all up. The more gruesome the story, the more she gasped and cooed. He spun tragic, pitiful tales. He played the part of the most brainwashed, happy captive ever. He let them ruffle his hair and pretended to find Enmei's puns endlessly hilarious. At the end of the meal, Akane said, "What a good boy you are. Is there anything you want?" His moment had arrived. Izuku widened his eyes and said, "I've been longing to see a bit of sunlight." Akane tapped the table with her painted fingernails. "The sun should be close to setting now." "Then there's not much time left. I can't sleep unless I see the sun at least once a day. I'll have nightmares. Nightmares about the time some bullies locked me up in the closet. It's an old trauma." Izuku hoped he wasn't laying it on too thick. "Please?" "There couldn't be any harm to letting you visit the greenhouse," Akane said. "I'll ask Botan to bring you on your way back to your room." Izuku would have preferred to be left there alone, but this was good enough. "Thank you so much." Not only Botan, but also the two guards walked down the hallway with him. Izuku had to think of a way to get rid of at least the guards. They walked up a flight of stairs. The door opened to an enormous greenhouse. Trees and tall bushes surrounded a pond with lily pads. An artificial waterfall rushed down the back wall. Izuku whispered to Botan, "Can I speak with you alone?" He jerked his head at the waterfall. Botan turned to the guards. "Wait outside, please." They listened to her. She must be trusted that far. By mutual agreement, they both went straight to the waterfall. Botan murmured, "Good idea. I have a few more things to tell you while no one can hear us." Izuku would have liked to hear them, but he didn't know how long they'd have alone. The sun outside was rapidly setting. He tapped on the glass. Botan's forehead creased. "That's bulletproof glass. You can't break it, and you'll get in trouble if you try." The thickness of the wall indicated she was telling the truth. Outside the glass, Izuku saw a lawn and parked cars. Too bad he had no idea how to hotwire a car. But that road must lead to people. Izuku turned to Botan. Do you want to get out of here? She hesitated. Then she muttered, low and miserable. I have a daughter. Izuku's heart clenched. I'm going to bring back help. Something rose up inside him in response to his burning need to save everyone trapped in this horrible compound. The power crackled down his arm, too strong to be contained. He drew back his fist and punched. The glass shattered. Izuku howled as pain ran down his arm. He'd felt pain before, but nothing like this wave of agony. The recoil knocked him into an orange tree. He heard a crack. His arm must have broken. Just his luck, his quirk broke bones. The sound would have drawn attention. He had to stand up, but his body wouldn't move properly and his vision swam and doubled. Botan bent over him. No, no, no! What have you done? Terror filled her voice. She cupped his cheek. Listen to me, please. You broke the wall using a handheld plastic bomb. They're bright blue cylinders. A Humarise priest has an ability that creates them. Luckily, they vanish after use instead of leaving remains. Can you remember that? She stared straight into his eyes. You stole it from the cupboard in the basement. No, they'll never believe that. You've only been here a day. Tell them I used the explosive. I'll tell them the same thing. She stood up. The guards will bring a doctor. Izuku could hear the door opening and footsteps coming forward. He had to get up, despite the agony racking his body. Leaning against the tree, he forced himself to his feet. Sweat dripped down his forehead. He slurred. You don't have to take the blame. Botan growled. If anyone finds out that you have a quirk, they will kill you. She grabbed his chin and forced him to look into her eyes. Desperation gleamed in her green irises. You will die slowly and painfully. It will be a bad death, and your poor mother won't even be able to identify your corpse. If you ever want to see your mother again, promise me that you won't tell. Do you understand me? He nodded. She finally turned away, running toward the approaching guards. She cried, Please, get him a doctor. I'm so sorry. I only meant to break the wall. I didn't mean to hurt him. I didn't know the explosion would be so big. One guard left while the other gripped Botan's arm and demanded an explanation from her over her sobs. They hadn't grabbed him immediately, probably because he looked too injured to escape. This was still his one and only chance. Clutching his broken arm, Izuku ran through the hole in the greenhouse. Shouts came from behind him. Then the sounds of a struggle. He glanced over his shoulder just long enough to see Botan had grabbed both guards and then gone limp, dragging them down with her body weight. They were trying to peel off her fingers without hurting her. Izuku almost took a step back, then he turned and ran even faster. He already knew she wouldn't come with him. He had to escape this hellhole and bring back help. Every step brought fresh agony to his arm. His entire world narrowed to putting one foot in front of the other. As he staggered through the parking lot, he tried car doors. They were all locked. He was wasting time. He gave up and ran for the cover of the trees lining the road. If he could get into the forest, he might be able to hide. Immediately after All Might had picked Izuku as a successor, he'd gotten kidnapped. The rage of it mingled with the fear that he would be found wanting. Izuku couldn't let that happen. He had to escape, to prove he was good enough. He ran into the brush. A groan slipped from his lips, but he pushed himself to sprint even as his legs burned. He had to find a hiding place. With his head throbbing and his arms screaming, he didn't know how much longer he could keep moving before he collapsed. A car roared down the road, coming toward the compound. Damn it, how had he gotten so unlucky? If they spotted him, it was all over. He ran faster than he would have believed possible, demanding more of his battered body. An iron ball blasted into the tree to his right, knocking the trunk into his path. They've seen me. He stumbled sideways, trying to go around. Another tree fell, blocking him in. The same muscular man from Aizawa's attempted kidnapping leapt forward and grabbed him. I've found the Messiah, he bellowed. Pressure dug into his broken arm. It was agonizing. Against his will, Izuku sobbed. Gently, Sidero, a cold voice ordered. Fetch a stretcher. Yes, master. Sidero set Izuku on the ground. Izuku struggled to rise, to run. He couldn't let this all be for nothing. Looking up, he saw a man with neon blue skin. This must be the master. As the man reached down, Izuku tried to shove with his one good hand. But the slim man was deceptively strong. He wrapped his arms tightly around Izuku and cooed, "Our Messiah, how have those irresponsible idiots let you get so damaged, Izuku had completely had it with people baby-talking him. He struggled harder. The man brushed a lock of sweaty hair off his forehead. "My name is Flecked Turn. You're Izuku, yes? Your test results came back and you have the most remarkable genetics. I feel honored to be in your presence, to be touching you like this." He kissed Izuku's forehead. "As expected, the Chosen Ones are the only people I can touch. Clearly, you negate my taint even more strongly than any before. You must have the purest soul of all." Izuku growled. He was also very much done with the unwanted touching and face kisses. He tried to elbow a kidney, but his body wasn't responding to his orders. His vision flashed in and out. Now, hold still. I know it must hurt. Help is on the way." Flecked cradled Izuku close to his chest, like a baby. "Whoever injured you will be in a great deal of trouble." Izuku flinched, thinking of Botan, who had taken the blame with the guards. Flecked stroked the bandage from Izuku's involuntary blood donation, then kissed it reverently. "You're our only chosen one who doesn't carry the genetic code for a quirk even recessively. You're completely untainted. If I didn't know any better, I'd say at least one of your parents must be centuries old." Huh? Izuku stared blankly. His mom used to joke that his dad must have come from the dawn of the age of quirks with his love for old movies and lack of pop culture references. Kidding aside, he felt extremely violated that these people had taken his blood against his will and run tests on it. Flecked ranted, "By coming to understand your genetics, we might be able to genetically engineer all our children to be born quirkless. Finally, we will stop the spreading disease that claims more of our young with every generation. You're a miracle, a messiah." Izuku couldn't suppress a full-body shudder. He hated to think of the cult genetically engineering quirkless babies to have an infinite supply for their creepy rituals because of him. From what he'd seen of this cult, they shouldn't be allowed within 500 feet of any quirkless person. "Lower the stretcher." Flecked spoke to someone who Izuku couldn't see because he was being held too tightly to the man's chest. "Everything is okay now," Flecked murmured into Izuku's hair. "You're safe. You're loved. You've been saved." "Get your fucking hands off me!" Izuku tried to say something, preferably something more witty and sarcastic than that, but when they lifted him onto the stretcher, he passed out. End of chapter 3. Omake time. Omake, the alternate strategy. All for one. You crazies want quirkless children? Then I'll kidnap Melissa Shield for a trade. I get my son back, you get a new messiah, and I get to watch All Might fall even further into depression. Everyone is happy. Flecked turn. It's a spare messiah. All for one. I know this is ironic coming from me, but have you considered being less greedy? Messiah means anointed one, not anointed two. Flecked turn. Her genetics are excellent. Only someone so worthy could have children with the Messiah. All for one. Hold up! You had better not be implying what I think you're implying. Oh my god, this route leads straight back to me teaming up with All Might. Omake, the alternate strategy version 2. All for one. Hand over my son or I'll go around giving quirks to every single quirkless person in Japan. Flecked turn. You're a monster. All for one. I have a lot of quirks and I'm not bluffing. Don't test me. Flecked turn. I'm left with no other choice. I'll have to launch our planned takeover of Japan early to stop you. All for one. First you vault my son before I get a chance to do it, then you take over Japan before I get a chance to do it. This cult is full of killjoys. All for One would have cheerfully tried both of these, except the cult found out about Izuku's special genetics first. Then he became too valuable to trade. All for One does not approve of cults unless they let him be their messiah.